everybody, my name is Dani. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the subreddit r/PettyRevenge. Try and make your stepson/ex's engagement party all about you? I'll bribe the staff to turn the party into a series of unfortunate events for you specifically. My big brother recently got engaged to a lovely woman who makes him so happy. I'm thrilled for him, especially because he had a string of terrible girlfriends and messy breakups before meeting this woman, and he deserves someone good for him. One of those terrible girlfriends went on to marry
our dad
and become our stepmom. She is, to put it as nicely and tactfully as possible, a bitch. When she found out that my brother was engaged, she first complained that she wasn't told at the same time he told his parents and siblings, which, girl, he's your ex, and then proceeded to try and make the whole thing about her. She talked openly about how this new girl isn't as pretty or as sociable as a certain past girlfriend of his. She called his new fiance to ask her questions to make sure she was right for him. She started referring to herself as a stepmom-in-law to be. She wanted to be involved in the planning for the engagement party, in which she wanted to make a speech.
No.
It all made my brother and his fiance very uncomfortable. I was very involved in planning the engagement party. My stepmom was so adamant that she had to be involved, and my dad asked my brother to let her, so to keep the peace, we let her, but I gave my stepmom random irrelevant things to deal with so she couldn't have any actual say in the event. I had this woman choosing between 8 nearly identical shades of taupe for the ribbons to go around the vases. I made it clear to her that her being invited to the event in the first place was a courtesy, and that if she had any tact, she would be ill that day. She, of course, showed up, wearing a white floor-length gown. Unclear if it came with a headdress.
This is not a wedding dress, it's a white floor-length gown. It's very different.
Did it come with a veil?
No, it came with a headdress.
So I asked some friends of mine to run interference to prevent her from talking to the couple. I also talked to the staff at the event and bribed them to make her day a little bit difficult. The photographer didn't manage to capture a single photo that included her all day, and asked to take family photos while she happened to be in the bathroom. The bartenders gave her non-alcoholic versions of every drink she ordered.
I gave you a non-alcoholic beer.
And spilled drinks on her twice. The waiters completely avoided going near her with canapes or drinks. And when she tried to make a speech, the microphone suddenly had an unexplained feedback that stopped working. Then the music started back up. Afterwards, she complained about how bad the event was. Everyone else seemed to have a good time though, especially the couple. One comment says, "I'm just gonna say it. Your dad married the ex-girlfriend of his son? OP, spill." OP replies, "Yeah, and then she had a baby with him and has been gently suggesting that her son should get more inheritance than the rest of us." My dad has been shutting her down on that one though. OP, I am so glad that you managed to cut this woman out of the day essentially. She's
clearly
not over your brother, and your dad should see this. I guess he doesn't care, he just wants a young lady to share his life with.
Hannah is currently an 8th grade student at Wellington Middle School, but one day, years in the future, she will be your second wife.
But if it were me, I would cut out that parent completely. That is not cool to date your son's ex. Like now he has to be around her all the time? Absolutely not. And it seems like the ex didn't suspect a thing, so all's well that ends well. Dad, the crying waitress, and the fart from hell. My dad was an asshole. A lovable asshole, a compassionate, intelligent, caring asshole. But piss him off, and he became the pettiest asshole you would ever meet. I have so many stories about his pettiness, but this is one of my favorites. One important thing to know about my dad is that if having the most noxious fart were an Olympic sport, he would have had multiple gold medals.
I can taste it.
Long car rides with him could be dangerous, and you knew that if Dad was in the toilet before you got there, you waited until anything he left dissipated.
Seriously, dude, light a candle.
Especially if he just had a nice rich meal. Dad and I both loved diners, and when we traveled, we would always ask where the good local diners were. On one of our college trips, we arrived at our hotel a little early and our room wasn't ready. The hotel clerk was very apologetic. Some of their housekeeping staff had called in sick and they were running behind.
Housekeeping.
Since we hadn't had lunch yet, it was around 2:30ish, we asked the clerk for diner recommendations and they suggested a place not far from the hotel. Off we go to lunch. Y'all, it's been over 30 years, but I still remember how good that food was. And our waitress, Sandy. Why do I remember her name? Because the couple at the table near us kept yelling it over and over and over again. There were maybe 10 people in the restaurant in total, and Sandy was taking care of most of them. She was on the younger side, but knew her stuff. I always like to ask what the staff likes when I'm making my decisions, and she told me what she liked. It was what they were known for and what the day girl cook excelled at. As Dad and I were thoroughly enjoying our food, we watched this couple treat Sandy like she was stupid. They sent their food back multiple times and said nasty things about Sandy so loudly that we had no trouble overhearing them.
If it's a medium, I send it back. If it's an extra large, I send it back.
Every time Sandy came to drop something off or check on us, she just looked more and more upset. Since we weren't in a hurry and the restaurant wasn't busy, we lingered over our meal, ordered dessert, and were still there when the mean couple paid their check. You paid at the cash register. And they told Sandy quite loudly that since her service was
So bad.
all they were leaving her was $1 tip, and they thought that was being generous. They left, and when Sandy came to give us our check, she looked like she'd been crying. Dad went to pay the check and gave her a very generous tip. When we got into the car, he was
Pissed.
and I got to hear a lecture about how if he ever found out that I treated a server like those people had, he would whoop my ass no matter how old I was. We got back to the hotel and had just checked in when another couple walked into the lobby. They headed towards the elevator that we were heading towards, and Dad and I both realized that it was the nasty couple from the restaurant who had been so mean to Sandy. We got on the elevator with them. They were staying on a floor above ours. Just as the door opened on our floor and I was walking out, my dad paused, let out a large, noxious fart, and said,
That's for Sadie.
and then walked off, smiling as the elevator door closed, hotboxing the nasty couple in with his equally nasty fart. I laughed so hard I cried. I do feel bad for anyone else who had to ride the elevator after that. One comment says, sounds like your father was a man of distinction. That couple fully deserved what they got. Servers make such little money that they do not need to be putting up with your crap. I think it's a great measure of whether or not you're a good person, the way that you treat people who you perceive as being below you. I hope they received many more retaliatory farts in the future.
Rick, here's...
An $800 car turns into $3,000 in tickets. This has been a favorite story amongst my friend group over the last few years, so I figured I'd share it here. From 2018 to 2022, I, a 25-year-old man, was a consistently broke pizza delivery guy. My common method for vehicles was to buy cars for under $1,000, do minor repairs, and then drive them for 3 to 6 months until they exploded. I'd make 10x on the car and would wash and repeat. I did this probably 7 or 8 times over the years. The only time I ever got burned was buying a '98 Civic Coupe. I remember I was a little extra broke, but I needed a car for work that week, and Civics/Corollas were/are the easiest and cheapest for me to work on. I texted this guy and drove to Felony Flats in Portland, red flag number 1, and was greeted by a man with a gold grill, red flag number 2, who didn't speak much English, which wasn't helped by my poor Spanish.
I'm gonna head to El Baño Ahora Muy Rapido.
The car itself was pretty beat up cosmetically, but ran perfectly, so I gave him the $800 and headed to work. This is where the fuckery begins. The next day, I headed to the DOL to register the car, only to realize that the title was voided due to the car being in a wreck, so I wouldn't be able to register it until I got the proper title. Annoying, but I figured he made an innocent mistake. I called him and left a message saying there are issues with the title, but he doesn't respond. I call over
100 times.
over the next 2 weeks to get it figured out, but he keeps ignoring me, and at this point, I figure I've been had. I moved the car to the public street to deal with another day. One morning, I came out to find tickets for no registration and no insurance left on the car to $150 to $200 between the two, and a tow warning.
A parking ticket! I was gone 5 minutes!
At first, I was
Enraged.
until it dawned on me that the car wasn't in my name and those tickets weren't mine to deal with. So I made a plan. Every few days, the car would get re-ticketed and tagged for towing. I would come out, place the tickets on the driver's seat, move the car by a few feet, and erase the tow warnings. After about 2 months, I had racked up about
$2,000 in tickets.
on this car that is not in my name. One day, I got a frantic call from, who'd you guess? The man who sold me the car, who also, miraculously, learned perfect English. He told me he was getting calls from the city and begged me not to let them tow it. I think at this point he realized what I was doing, and that he would get me the title that week, and that the delay was because he and his wife were in a nasty divorce and she had the current title. I simply responded, "What car?" and hung up on him. As I was leaving my apartment, I saw the cops there getting ready to load it onto the tow truck and decided to let it go in case the former owner came looking for it. Ultimately, I never got my $800 back, but he got $2,000 in tickets, $4,000 if they went over 30 days unpaid, a $1,000 tow bill, and if the story about his divorce was true, a super pissed ex-wife because the car was still in her name too. You can't put a price on that. I never heard from him or the city about the car. My only regret was not driving it to an empty parking lot and leaving it in a handicap spot, but I didn't want to risk being seen on cameras. Hope you enjoyed. This reminds me of that story about the guy who drove his ex-girlfriend's car to an airport and just left her car there, and it racked up, I don't remember, thousands of dollars in tickets. That is so funny. I wonder if that's legal? Like, is it grand theft auto if it's not actually in your name? I don't know. Funny story. I don't know if I would try it, but I really don't know what I would do in that situation. I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you try to rack up as many tickets as you could on a car that wasn't actually yours? That was r/PettyRevenge. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!